I'm back. It's been a while. Good afternoon. Yeah, 2023 has been crazy for me. I love all of you, but so that is not why I haven't been here. But anyway, it is delightful to be back. And then they put me in charge the first day back. Welcome to the March 9th meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I am past President Catherine Staub, filling in for Matt, who is off enjoying some March Madness. We have, and it doesn't show up there, we have just one guest today. I'm not ignoring Duncan, but Duncan is not yet here. So I would like to welcome Stella Vikanovich. She works at North Risk Partners and is a guest of Bob Federal. Welcome, Stella.
Thank you.
Then a reminder that we have our tumblers back on the tables, back by popular demand. If you do not have a green $ on your badge, we ask that you would contribute a suggested $3 in cash each week. If you do have a green $ on your badge, you of course are welcome to throw in some cash as well. All of that money, as you know, supports our foundation and the great work that we do through that foundation. So we ask you to contribute as you are able. And thank you to Randy Worth, who signed up to help collect tumblers after the meeting. And now Kathy Cody has a community service opportunity to share with us. Kathy?
Good afternoon. We have a couple wonderful opportunities coming up where you can sign up to serve a meal with Hope Ministries. And some of you know, and some probably do not, that I work for Hope Ministries. So I do not have an objective opinion, but I can tell you this is a very impactful experience. And food insecurity is certainly a hot topic. We're hearing a lot about food insecurity. So there are obviously many roles that are filled in the community by different organizations. And what GAP Hope Ministries fills is that we offer free warm meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day to anybody in the community. So just so that you know, when someone is standing holding a sign on 6th Avenue that they're hungry, 1310 6th Avenue offers breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day to anybody who comes through our doors. So what you can do in serving a meal with us, you don't have to do the heavy lifting. We have wonderful cooks who will prepare the meal. You'll be dishing up the meal. You might be serving beverages. You might be serving some dessert or some sides, but it's very impactful to people to be seen, to be valued, and your smile, your hello, it might make their day. It might change the course of your life, literally, because I've heard those stories. So I would encourage you to consider joining us if you have a couple hours available. So there's a sign-up sheet that's going to be by our name tags when we leave. So thank you to the folks who've already signed up. We have slots available still for both dates. So it's going to be Monday, April 3rd for the dinner hour, which is 4 to 5:45 p.m., or Friday, April 7th for the lunch period, which is 11 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. So hopefully you can join us. This is going to be at the table by the name tags. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. We do not have an official moment of inspiration, but I did not know this. Today, March 9th, is Get Over It Day. No, no idea that was a thing, but it is. And what we are asked to do on Get Over It Day is get over it. People everywhere are encouraged to self-reflect and move on from whatever it is that's weighing on you. In 2005, Atlanta native Jeff Goldblatt created Get Over It Day. He placed the new holiday between Valentine's Day and April Fool's after he realized numerous people would relate to the problem he was having of getting over his breakup. So realizing his pain was relatable, Goldblatt created the day to self-reflect, find out what's weighing us down, and choose that the past should just stay in the past. So I think we can apply this to our winter weather, although Saturday when I drive to Colorado, I want there to be feet and feet and feet of snow so I can ski in it, so it can't apply to winter weather in Colorado. But here, sure. We can all focus on the fact that spring is ahead, and here's our public service announcement for today. Daylight savings time begins this weekend, so spring forward. And now we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance in the four-way test. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the four-way test.
The truth is fair to all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
All right, and now Jason, oh, no, sorry. Greet everybody. Oh, that's not on the script. Greet everyone.
You know I don't feel it.
I know you don't feel it. I thought that was just, I All right, now Jason Stuyvesant is going to introduce today's speaker. Jason?
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Today I have the pleasure to introduce Madeline Clark. She's the Partner Relations Coordinator for the Central Western Territories for the Iowa Donor Network. That is a lot of words, but easier to say than Rosie Rotary. She's very passionate about the mission. She's here to talk today about the importance of organ tissue and eye donation. Madeline grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, went to the University of Iowa, majored in psychology and English creative writing. I also learned she just moved to Des Moines about 2 weeks ago, so let's all welcome her in that way as well. She initially connected with the Donor Network through an internship her senior year of college, then applied for a full-time position. She's been with the Iowa Donor Network for only a year, but has a personal lifelong connection to donation that I'm sure we'll hear about. So without further ado, I'm happy to welcome Madeline Clark.
Hello, how's everyone doing today?
I'm still going to get over it, so.
Well, my name is Madeline Clark. I am the Partner Relations Coordinator for the Western Central Territories of Iowa, which is a mouthful. I'm still learning to say that. And I am here today to talk about the gift of life through organ, eye, and tissue donation. So by a show of hands, if you feel comfortable, who in the room knows that they are a registered donor? Okay, so pretty much everyone. Wow. Thank you for interacting with that. For those who are not yet a registered donor or unsure, I'm hoping by the end of the presentation you will learn a couple ways you can register if you so choose to. Oop, I went a little too quick there. Oh, went too quick. Sorry about that. So who actually can be a registered organ, eye, and tissue donor? We get the question a lot if I'm too old to be a donor, or if I have this medical illness, can I still be a donor? And we like to say that anyone can be a donor. Don't rule yourself out based on a medical condition or age. The actual oldest tissue donor in the state of Iowa was 106 years old, which is crazy amazing that someone is still having an impact with a donation. But we ask that you don't rule yourself out and let the medical professionals at the time of passing make that decision for you. Oh my goodness, sorry it's going so quick. So a little bit about us is our mission is that all are all inspired to donate life, as well with our mission statement being all are inspired to donate life as well. Sorry, my mission statement's missing up there, so I got a little confused. But we're working together to transform lives through organ and tissue donation. A little bit about Iowa Donor Network is we are a non-for-profit organization that's called an organ procurement organization, which is an OPO, as well as a tissue recovery agency. We are regulated by CMS with our organ donation, as well as the FDA with our tissue and cornea donation. We do service over 120 hospitals in the state of Iowa, as well as have 3 different transplant centers, 2 being in Iowa City and 1 here in Des Moines. Our main office is out of North Liberty, which hosts the majority of our C-suite. However, we do have a regional office in Altoona as well, which does house our tissue recovery agency. Our communication center team, organ and tissue recovery team, funeral services, and funeral directors do operate 24/7, 365, because we are trying to advocate for those patients waiting for an organ. When you're sick and needing a transplant, that does not stop when it's Christmas, so neither does our team. We do have dedicated tissue recovery suites with off-site capabilities, basically meaning we can go to the hospital to recover if need be in terms of tissue. However, our Altoona branch does have a tissue recovery suite inside the office as well. And we are the primary call center for the Iowa Lions Eye Bank. Something really unique about the state of Iowa in terms of donation is we are an OPO and tissue recovery agency, and because of our great relationship with the Iowa Lions Eye Bank, when calling to make a referral for a donation, you only need to call 1 number. Whereas in another state, you might have to call 3 different times for an organ, tissue, and eye. So it's amazing that we're able to have such a great relationship and streamline that into 1 phone call. A little bit about understanding our role with the donation process is we do fulfill the decision of designated donors. We guide and support families through end-of-life decision-making and grieving, and we have the life-saving mission of advocating for patients on the transplant waiting list. We also like to educate and inspire Iowans to register as donors, which is why I love my job, because I'm able to come and speak at events like this and share the mission and why organ donation is so impactful. So you might be wondering, Madeline, why are you here today? Like, why you in particular? And that is because of these 3 lovely people on the screen. I'm going to start on the far side with the gentleman in the glasses. On the left side, that is my grandfather, my papa. And before I was born, he was diagnosed with primary sclerosing cholangitis around 30 years ago. What that means for those unfamiliar with the disease is that the bile ducts in his livers were inflamed, scarred, and narrowed to the point where that liver was no longer able to function. Doctors told him there is no medication to stop this, we have nothing to cure this, your only hope is an organ transplant. I like to think nowadays organ transplant isn't even talked about enough, so you can imagine 30 years ago it wasn't even really a conversation, it was so incredibly rare. And so the thought of him getting an organ transplant seemed impossible. Fortunately though, someone with the goodness in their heart decided to register as a donor. When they unfortunately passed away, they were able to save my grandfather's life. Fast forward 10 years from when he gets that transplant, he is not on the most updated medication for anti-rejection, and that liver starts to fail. Being able to get 1 liver seemed impossible to my family. The thought of him getting a second seemed just even more impossible. But again, someone in their kindness registered as a donor, and when they passed away, they saved my grandfather's life and gave him a 3rd shot. And with that 3rd shot, he was there for the birth of all his grandchildren. He was able to meet a great-grandchild. He was there for all my birthdays, graduations, celebrations, holidays. He actually was a neighbor of mine in St. Louis, and when he would come over to do laundry on the weekend, I'd have to pause my Netflix show, and while I was angry I couldn't binge watch Stranger Things or whatever was trending at the time, I look back now and I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to even get to talk to him. He did recently pass away in November of 2022, and while I'm still grieving and I miss him so incredibly much, I'm so thankful for the 2 people that said yes to donation, because so much of who I am today, my passion, my craziness, my nicknames, is because of him. And without him, I'd be an entirely different person. So you might be saying, oh, that's a great connection. How can you have more? Well, I do. On the far side of the screen, the gentleman in the hat, that's my Uncle Jamie. In 2012, he died unexpectedly at the age of 36, leaving behind 2 sons, and I was 12 years old. I had no concept of what death was. The only death I had seen had been in Disney movies where they don't show it, they don't show the grieving process. And so I went around angry, hurt, upset, and just confused with the world. Excuse me. I did know he was a registered donor, however, I did not know what that meant at the time. And it wouldn't be until a year later when the OPO in St. Louis held a candlelight tribute to commemorate all the donors that year that I realized the importance of what we were doing and what he had done. I was decorating a tall pillar candle that you might see at like Dollar Tree with stickers and Sharpies writing how much I missed him as we were going to light them at the end of the night, when this little girl around 5 years old bumped me really hard and messed up my art. And I was so furious because she was giggling and she was laughing and I was sitting there crying because my uncle was dead. And a beat later, a gentleman ran, scooped her up in his arms. When he turned to apologize to us, on his chest was a sticker that said recipient. And I stopped being angry. It drained out of my body all that anger because that girl was going to grow up with a dad because of people like my uncle. That dad was going to be at her graduations, her birthdays, her holidays, and someday her wedding because someone like my uncle said yes. And while I miss him every single day, he was my hero in life and he became someone else's hero in his passing. I'm going to jump to the middle of the screen now. That is my younger brother, Alexander. That was the age he was, 13 years old, when doctors told him he had a liver disease and the only cure was transplantation. It's the same liver disease as my grandfather. I was 15 years old and my parents pulled me and my other brothers onto the porch as Andrew was in the hospital, and they explained there's no medication, there's nothing we can do. We have 5 to 10 years to find Andrew a liver if he's going to keep living. And that's a scary thing to hear at 15 years old as a sister. I can't imagine how terrified Andrew was. And as an older sister, it was my job to protect him and to keep him safe, and this was something I couldn't fight. And so at 15 years old, before I could even drive a car, I promised myself I was going to find Andrew a liver. So in high school, I wrote papers and I made PSA videos educating people in my community. In college, I went around my dormitory my freshman year, knocked on every single door, and registered those who were not yet registered to be an organ donor. And there I wrote papers and got involved. And then I found Iowa Donor Network my senior year through an internship. And because of that internship, I'm now fully employed and I'm able to come here and continue telling my story, which I'm so thankful for. Ooh, it went a little too quick. Sorry about that. So, I have 3 connections to donation, but I'm well aware most people don't have any. So as I go through these numbers, if you're thinking, who does this apply to, feel free to use any of the people I just showed on the screen. But these are the organ transplant waiting list of 2022. There were 106,000 men, women, and children who are waiting for a life-saving transplant in the United States. Of that number, 85%, so around 90,000 people are just waiting for a kidney. That is one organ that 90,000 people are fighting for to keep living. 600 plus, so I think that number is actually around 675, are actually Iowans who are waiting for that life-saving transplant. So that's people in your communities who are still fighting for that right to live and waiting for that life-saving transplant. Some more numbers, the top of them are really scary to see, but 17 people do die each day waiting for an organ transplant. And as someone with a brother on that list, that number is terrifying to see because that list is not getting any shorter. Every 9 minutes, another name will be added to that list. So if you take an hour, that's 6 more people added. And that's really scary. Some happier numbers, however, these were the transplant numbers of 2021, I believe. In terms of organ donation, there were 41,000 successful organ transplants nationwide, averaging out to 113 organ transplants each day in the United States. With eye donation, we were able to restore sight to 85,000 people, and through tissue donation, we were able to enhance and save the lives of 2.5 million people. So when it does come to organ donation, there are 6 internal organs that you are able to donate, and that includes the lungs, pancreas, kidneys, heart, liver, and intestines. However, if a person is suitable to donate all 6 internal organs, they can actually save between 7 to 9 lives. The lungs can be segmented or separated and go to 2 different recipients. The kidneys almost always go to 2 different recipients. And the liver can actually be segmented into 2 parts and go to 2 different recipients and then regrow to their full size. So that's not 6, those 6 organs are going to 7 to 8 people, which is amazing. The numbers on the side of the screen do show the time that we have from the OR recovering the organs to when they do have to be transplanted. While organ donation is incredibly rare, it is also incredibly fast. With heart and lungs, we have 4 to 6 hours to recover those and then transplant them. Liver, we have 8 to 12 hours. Pancreas and intestines have 12 to 14. And kidneys have up to 36 hours if kept on a kidney pump. So obviously, let's say someone in Iowa was in need of a heart. Someone in Hawaii, say they're a perfect match. We can't get that heart because it's too far away. When I do talk about how rare organ donation is, that is because out of every 1,000 deaths, only 3 people die in a way that can have the potential for organ donation. So that's why it's so important that everyone does register, because it is so rare. But when someone does have the opportunity to be a donor, it is life-saving. These are some stats for organ donors just in the state of Iowa. So in 2021, 128 Iowans did give the gift of life through organ donation. And by saying yes to donation, that allowed for 365 organs to be successfully transplanted. So that is 365 lives that were saved. And when you think about that ripple effect, that's 365 sisters like myself who will still have a little brother. And that's just amazing, crazy, amazing number to see. I talked a little bit about organ donation, but another thing we can donate is tissue and corneas, which are just as important. This is what it looks like on the screen. So you can donate your corneas, bones, tendons, valves, skin, veins, as well as the ones on the side. Your corneas can restore sight for up to 2 people. And what's neat about the corneas is there is no tissue typing needed as they are avascular. With the bones, that can help with mobility and restore mobility, as well as be helped in spinal surgeries and dental surgeries. With tendons, that's often used in sports injury repairs, such as an ACL or Achilles injury. The valves are used for congenital heart defects or other valve disease. What's cool about the heart valves actually is pediatric patients or those little kiddos who need a heart valve. While there are artificial hearts in the market, by having a donor heart or donor valve placed on that pediatric patient, it'll grow with them. So that saves kids from multiple surgeries in the future if they had an artificial valve. The skin is just so incredible. I could probably talk all day about what the skin can do. But that is life-saving for burn patients. It's used in cleft palate repairs as well as a multitude of other repairs and wound treatments. And the veins are used in bypass grafts to restore circulation to heart and other extremities. The 4 on the side, they aren't any less important, but those are the newer types of tissues we're seeing, including the aortic, iliac, vertebral bodies, adipose, and costal cartilage. So this is what tissue grafts do look like once they are recovered and processed. Something cool about tissue is while there is a crunch time for the recovery, once it is processed, tissue has a shelf life of 5 years. So someone who passed away, let's say today, they could still be helping and influencing the lives of someone in 5 years from now. And that's because the packaging actually expires, the tissue does not. So in the future, we hope that we can develop a packaging that will keep this tissue good for even longer and help so many more people. Speaking of impacting, this is called an impact map, and this is Amanda's impact. So Amanda did pass away, and through her gift of tissue donation, she was able to enhance and save the lives of 251 individuals, not just across the United States, but I'm sure you can see that giant US map, and we're familiar with it. But under her picture, I'm sure you can see a worldwide map. And she helped people in the United Kingdom, Switzerland, and Malaysia. So it's incredible to see the impact that tissue donation can have as well as organ. In terms of tissue donation, in 2021, there were 984 Iowans who improved and healed the lives of others through the gift of tissue donation. and one tissue donor can impact between 50 and 300 people. So if we take 984 and multiply that by 50, and then 984 and multiply that by 300, somewhere in that range is the amount of people whose lives are going to be saved and healed and enhanced just from 2021 donors, which is amazing. This is a quick video. We call them Connect to Purposes, and this is Michaela Brunson. She was a teenager when she passed away, and she was a tissue donor. So let's see if I can play it.
Michaela was funny, she was smart, she was creative, and she was quite frankly the glue that held our family together. She was someone that commanded attention when she walked in the room because her smile just lit it up. There was nothing about Michaela that said, we should be concerned. There was nothing about Michaela that said, boy, we better check in on her. By all accounts, a very happy little girl. When Michaela was 16, Michaela took her own life.
I'm Brian Brunson.
I'm Alma Brunson, and this is Michaela's story. So Michaela was one of 5 children. She was the 4th of 5 children, a complete daddy's girl. We like to tell the story how I always put a little crown in her head, and she was daddy's princess. And so dad would come home from work and, where's my princess? When Michaela went to get her license, they asked you, of course, would you like to be an organ donor? She turned to me and she says, can I? And I looked at her and said, that's up to you. And she says, yes. And so she checked that box. And I was very, very proud of her. Yeah, so that was pretty special. She was a bright, vibrant, charismatic, very outgoing 16-year-old girl. She very much delighted in helping others. That was just her giving, loving spirit. We did not know that she was struggling and battling with depression. So it was something that completely shattered us. To go from this happy, chaotic family of 5 kids to finding out that she had been battling with depression for many, many years and lost her battle that day. In order to try and make sense of what we had just gone through was impossible. We could not change what had happened, but we could continue to honor Michaela by doing what she would do, helping others. So it became a no-brainer to share her in fulfilling her wishes.
Thinking about Michaela's personality and how much she loved children, her heart vows went to a little girl in Texas and helped save her. And so I know that one was really special to her. Her skin helped multiple women with mastectomies. She helped an older gentleman who was having spinal issues, wasn't able to walk, and after he got her tissues, he was able to get around again, and we received a note from him. It's meant so much to me from her passing and listening to her friends and hearing these stories of how she always treated everybody, no matter who you were, she treated you special. It also follows through with her organ tissue donation. And I'm just so proud of her.
Iowa Donor Network has been a huge comfort to us, and we feel honored when they ask us to present or when they ask us to share Michaela's image and share her story. And one of those things is driver's license office. There's a poster of Michaela there. And I've had several friends that have said, my 14-year-old got their permit, and when we got there, we saw Michaela. And my daughter said, I want to be an organ donor. It really means a lot to us when someone says, I wanted you to know that my loved one and I had this conversation. As we received the medallion from Iowa Donor Network, it brought comfort knowing that our loved one made a difference and helped others. So even though she's no longer physically here with us, her story being shared raises awareness for suicide awareness, for organ and tissue donation, for blood drives, all of the things, because life is precious. You never know the kind of impact that you've made on someone, that you have made in someone's life, or that you could make in someone's life. If you stop and think about a loved one that might have a medical or health issue, whose life would be improved by a donation, wouldn't you want someone that had the ability to do that, to make that decision? I know I would. I know I've had family members that have benefited from it and friends that have benefited from it. Just do it. Check the box.
So that was Michaela's story. It's a very hard video to watch, but Alma and Brian are still very active volunteers with Iowa Donor Network, and we're just so thankful that they shared Michaela's story with us. Speaking of donor family care and ongoing support, Iowa Donor Network does offer a variety of different ways to make sure our families know we love them. We do offer donor family and recipient correspondence. With that, however, both parties must be consenting to receiving the correspondence, and that is initially facilitated through Iowa Donor Network. You can see that on the left side of the screen. That is a family of an organ donor who's named Kyle. And they're also with Kyle's heart recipient. So the gentleman in the blue in the middle holding that picture is received the pictured boy Kyle's heart, and this is the two families meeting. And I'm sure if you guys have any organ donation on any of your social media feeds, sometimes you've seen videos of mothers having a stethoscope and listening to the heart of their loved one in another. But as someone who has a connection to the donor side of things, also knowing that my loved one saved a life and continues to live on in another is just such an amazing experience, and it makes the grieving process so much easier. We do have donor family events as well with Iowa Donor Network. On the top picture in the middle of the screen, that is our candlelight tributes. We have 3 of them across the state of Iowa towards the end of the year, where we invite donor families to come and light a candle in remembrance of their loved one, as well as show a picture and have the opportunity to connect with other donor families and talk about their loved one. As well as events in the summer. On the bottom of the screen is one of our 5Ks. We do have 2 of them in the summer. One's actually coming up in West Des Moines, our Green 5K. And that's another opportunity for donor families and recipients to get to meet each other and talk. On the far side of the screen is our donor memorial garden that is located in our Altoona office. That is open and free to the public, and that's just an opportunity to walk around and remember those who gave life to another. So if you're wondering, how do I register if you are not currently yet registered, there are 4 different ways in the state of Iowa to become an organ donor. The first and most popular would be at the DMV when obtaining or renewing your driver's license. There will be a little red heart, a little red heart with the word donor next to it at the bottom, which indicates your decision. You can also register online at our website. We do oversee the Iowa registry, so that is one way we can get you on that, as well as our pamphlets, which you can mail them in. We do have them at events usually, where you just fill out your information similar to the online, just a paper version, and we will get you registered. And as of 2019, there is a new way. It's called Logan's Law. Does anyone in the room follow wrestling closely or has heard the name Lily Luft recently? So Lily Luft is actually the sister of Logan Luft. Logan was 15 years old when he passed away in an ATV accident. And he was not only an organ and tissue donor, but he was an active hunter and fisherman. And his parents didn't only want Logan's legacy to stop with organ donation, which is already an amazing cause, and they took it one step further and created Logan's Law. So when getting your hunting, fishing, or fur trapping license at the DNR now in the state of Iowa will ask, would you like to register as an organ donor through Logan's Law? And when this was enacted in 2019, September of 2019 to the end of the year, so in 3 months, Logan's Law was able to register almost 1,000 new registrants. So it's amazing impact. And if you do follow wrestling and have heard the name Lily Luff, that is his younger sister, and she is now, I think, like she's really big in wrestling now, and she does that in honor of her brother Logan. I will take time for questions if you do have any. I know one common question people ask is, if I am a donor, what will that look like for the funeral service, whether that be cremation or burial. But we do, when someone's a donor, treat that donor with the greatest of respect as they are giving the gift of life. When I was 12 years old and they told me my uncle was a donor, I was scared to approach his casket because I didn't know what he was going to look like. He looked exactly like my uncle. You couldn't have told he'd saved so many lives, but I do know that is a popular question. However, if anyone has any more, I'm more than happy to answer. Yes?
Madeline, thank you for moving to Des Moines, for being here.
Thank you.
Some of us have heard hundreds of speakers on Thursdays. I've never heard this room be so quiet or still.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much. Obviously, the cause is near and dear to my heart, and a lot of people don't like talking about death or whatever, but this gives me an opportunity to remember my uncle and my grandfather now, so I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much.
I still have a
Yes.
But we can interact.
Oh, absolutely. I'm ready for the question.
Your younger brother is still living
Yes.
and still waiting.
Yes, so my younger brother is still waiting because my grandfather did have that disease. My younger brother actually has a bunch of chronic illnesses that mirrored my grandfather, so we were able to see the early markers of the primary sclerosing cholangitis. Because Ander is so healthy, we have been able to slow it. He actually has now been able to go to college away in Ohio, which doctors initially told him you can't leave to go to college or leave to go to school. But he is doing okay right now from my understanding. My parents have not updated me with anything, but we still do have that countdown. I would imagine in less than 5 years, Ander's going to need that transplant still.
All right, so my real question.
Yes, sorry.
There are 500,000 people who live in this metro.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, some will pass away today, some will be donors. And you've got hours. So who makes the connection on the passing of a donor and the recipient? Is it the rise to the top of the list? Is it proximity to the hospital? Who makes that call? Who literally makes that call?
Yes, I'm going to quickly repeat the question. It's basically asking when someone passes away, how are we notified at Iowa Donor Network to get that donor's organs or tissues to the recipient, and how does that wait list work? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes. So we have multiple different teams that work 24/7 to track that waiting list. Per CMS guidelines, if someone passes away in a hospital, it is the gold standard that they do call us within 1 hour of their passing, and we do approach on site to determine whether or not that donor is able to be a donor, because unfortunately sometimes a person isn't viable to be that or suitable. But once someone has been determined that, based on that waiting list, there's a multitude of factors such as age, in the sense that you don't want to give a baby who needs a heart valve, a grown man's heart valve. You want to try to match that more appropriately, as well as geography, as you can see, and time spent on the waiting list. So there's an algorithm that tracks that, and we have people on our team who look for that. When you are knowing you're closer to the top of the list, OPOs will tell you not to leave pretty much the city, because you can get that call at any time. My grandfather, when he got his second liver, it was, I believe, on Valentine's Day. They called him at 1 in the morning, and he rushed to the hospital to get it because it goes so quick. You have to be ready. I believe actually a couple of years ago they gave pagers that you weren't allowed to ever leave, because once you got paid, you had to get to the hospital.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for your excellent program.
Thank you.
If we have this notice on our driver's license, how does it work to get to the right position? If somebody spots that in the license. And the second part is, what about the contacts? Who besides your family should know this is going on?
Yes, so the question is about the donor designation on your license. How do we track that as an organization, as well as what does the next of kin hierarchy look like in terms of saying if a loved one wants to be a donor? So when you do mark yes on your license, because of our great relationship with the DMV, there is a statewide registry that gets added to. So we do regulate that. So registering online is the same as registering at the DMV. That all goes to the same list. If someone is not a donor at the time of their passing, we like to think that's not because the person said no. That means that they never had the opportunity to donate. There is legislation called the UAGA, the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act, which sets up this hierarchy for next of kin, where we would approach and say, would your loved one like to be a donor? And they have the authority to make that medical decision. When you do designate yourself as a donor, that is legally binding. It acts as a medical will. However, if you never got around to making that donor designation, or if you're underage and you're still under your parents' care, so 18 or 17 or younger, that next of kin hierarchy is who we would approach, which is why it's so important to tell people in your life, I want to be a donor, just so they know of your wishes and can say that to Iowa Donor Network. Yes. Yes.
Short question, is doing it on your driver's license enough? Like, I want everything donated, but I can, and I would go another step to sign up, but.
Yes, so the question was, is doing it on your license enough? It is, yes, because it'll get added to that giant list saying that you do wish to be a donor. So that is enough. Yes, good question. Yes.
So what are the conditions for people to be able to actually donate? What type of death or what circumstances?
So the question was, what are the different types of conditions for donation? It does vary case by case. With organ donation, because it's so rare, that person must be intubated in a hospital. And there's a series of criteria they must reach, where we would then approach. A lot of times, that's when a loved one would say, like, oh, they wouldn't want to live like this, we want to pull the plug and begin end-of-life care. That's when we would approach and say, is your loved one a registered donor? Would they like to be a donor? And they say yes, that's what they would love to do, that as their final act. So that's like one condition where we would do donor organ donation. When it comes to tissue donation, that is more case by case. You do not have to pass in a hospital or be intubated in a hospital. We just have to be notified of the death as soon as possible. From the time of death, we have 24 hours to do the entire tissue process. So fill out all the paperwork. With tissue donation, we have to do a 2-year deep dive of social and medical history as it's regulated by the FDA. And then bring to our tissue recovery suite and then get to our funeral directors. Does that answer the question? So there's a lot of, basically when there's a person or a potential donor, a lot of people start getting involved as soon as possible. Yes?
Let's say my cousin needs a liver transplant and I unfortunately pass away. Does my liver, and I'm a donor, does my liver go to the person on the list, or can my other family say, well, we have a family member that we would like her liver to go to? How does that?
Yes, so the question is, if you had a relative who needed a liver or an organ of some sort and you pass away, will that organ go to that relative? So from my understanding, and I am newer to the position, so I can follow up and get a more accurate answer, is if you do pass away, I think they will look into your loved one or relative, but there is a certain matching that has to be involved. There is the opportunity of living donation, which is a little different and not necessarily seen through Iowa Donor Network, but with that, you can definitely be more, this kidney, extra kidney I have, because you have 2, you only need 1. You can say, I would like to give this to a loved one, and we have multiple people in our volunteer program who have interacted. in terms of saying, oh, I want my liver to go to this person, I think they definitely do look into that, especially if that person's higher on the list. However, I can't guarantee that it will go to said person. I will follow up with my manager though, and I can get you a more solid answer.
Just more curious.
It's a good question. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Madeline. As David mentioned, this was just an incredible presentation, a moving story. Thank you for sharing your personal connection, as well as making this at least the start of your life's work. As a token of appreciation, we're giving a book in your honor to the Des Moines Public Library, and your book will become part of our Rotary Rosie Reader Van collection. The traveling library has reached scores of readers across Des Moines since 2020, when our club donated $40,000 to the library to finance its purchase. Upcoming meetings, as you consider the upcoming meeting agendas, please think about who you know who might be interested in joining you and invite that person to join you as a guest. Remember that you and your guests need to be registered by 9 a.m. on Wednesday the week before. So March 16th, Dr. Angela Franklin, who is the president of Des Moines University. March 23rd, Kelly Markey, who's the founder and executive director of Dorothy's House. And if you recall, Dorothy's House is a 2019 grant recipient of Rotary Club of Des Moines. And then on March 30th, Matt Unger, our very own Matt Unger, the CEO of DMARC, and as I said, a member of Rotary Club of Des Moines, and that, along with every program, but that is certainly not one to be missed. If you've been reading the news, I'm guessing that Matt has lots of updates for us. The kitty is making faces. I'm not sure what is going on.
It's like recording what you're saying. I don't know what I did.
Tell a joke.
Yeah. You are now closed
That's
caption.
my skill set. I can't tell a joke to save my life. I can laugh at them. I can laugh at them, definitely. Yeah. Oh my God, that's embarrassing. Okay, so can I say, Catherine Staub is the most amazing person on the face of the earth.
I'll get over it.
And now get over it. Get over it, Jay. All right, that was kind of a Jason's Club, a little bit of a joke. Like, score one more for me. All right. Kitty's never, and Matt is never going to leave again. Kitty's never going to invite me back. I used to be the safe bet because I would never go off script. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for being a part of Rotary Club of Des Moines, and we are adjourned.